Technical difficulties. Okay, so today we are going to be going over physics and collisions again, and then we're going to quickly go over like how to figure out stuff on your own. So basically using the internet, and then we're going to design like a prototype enemy, which you may or may not use in your game. Like it's pretty specific. Yeah. So yeah, we know from like previous sessions that we didn't have like the code for the exercises, so now we've got it. So if you didn't finish the exercises or you think like if your code like doesn't work as you're going forward, then maybe you can just come back and like download these files. But if you're confident that your code works, that you don't actually have to take this exact version and use it for like today's exercises. Yeah, so the links are going to be here. I assume everyone has access to the slides. If you don't, you can just like ask for it in the chat. So going back to physics, basically we have velocity, which is like the thing that you keep adding to the position. So every either like every fixed amount of time, so it might be like every 0.1 seconds or every frame. Like there's a difference between like the frames is like it kind of depends on how fast your computer's running, whereas if you have it update based on like time, then it's like more constant. But basically, you would add the velocity to the object's position every, I guess, usually a frame. It's usually a frame. And then acceleration is kind of like, it's you add acceleration to velocity. So in the sense, basically it gives you the effect of like speeding up or slowing down. And then once again, with jumping, you just set, like the main way to do this is you just set the velocity to some negative number. Right? Character starts going down, but then the velocity slows down due to gravity until it's like negative and the character comes back down. Then we have collisions. So for anyone who didn't see the links I sent in the Discord server, basically they're in the Wednesday channel. I can put them in the chat like maybe after our first breakout room or something, but basically did a couple YouTube videos where I didn't do them, but I referenced a couple of YouTube videos where they have basically full collision because the collision that we used, once again, we kind of only did for like top. Maybe some of you already figured out how to do it from all four directions, but I'll send you guys the links um, if you don't. Okay, so basically, once again, collisions, they have a built-in Pygame function that lets you like determine if this rectangle is overlapping with this rectangle. Like in this case, both the player and the platform are rectangles. There's actually a way to do like, I think it's called like Pygame, using Pygame masks to do, it's called like pixel perfect collisions. And that allows you, if your like player's like round or something, you can actually make it, you can like detect the edges, but we can look that up on your own if you really want to implement it. But usually a rectangle will do the trick. Mm, yeah. So yeah, that brings us to our first quick question. It's kind of just a review. If platform is right, what does this code do? Yeah, okay. I'm not gonna be able to do that. Uh, 1 minute 17. Okay. Blah blah blah. Okay. Almost done. Yeah, okay. So we go back. Sorry, I'm not screen sharing. 1 second. Um, looks like most of you got this right, but basically the reason that the player stops falling is because player.y underscore speed gets set to 0, and we assume that this exists. Okay, so yeah, I actually think we probably should have covered this like earlier, but it's like on using the internet. So one of the things that you're gonna know with like, just as you learn code down the road and, beyond this session, is usually you're gonna learn like most of your stuff from the internet. And in fact, like if you didn't take a course like from Schoolic, you would probably learn like, through YouTube videos and stuff. And then as you encounter new things, you're probably gonna end up going through documentation, Stack Overflow, that. So I guess the first thing is like generally speaking, you shouldn't ever need to grant like administrator access for people to like for like if there any code that you get off the internet asks you for administrator access, it's probably not a good thing. This is just like in general, not just like for coding, but like any sort of fix for your computer. I've never come across anything that actually needs admin access, but even if you don't, like obviously like try to understand most of the code before you use it. I think that's kind of common sense in a way. Um, so I guess the first thing is some tips on like how to Google more effectively. So in general, you want to be like specific, right? It's like what is the issue? Um, and I guess it's also like I think in terms of specificity, if you know like what concept you're looking for, then you should try to Google for the concept. So maybe you want to be like, how do you, like in this example, it's like how sound effects and collision. So those are kind of like two concepts, or not necessarily concepts, but just, two things. In terms of like, if you get too specific, then chances are like Google's not really gonna know like what. Like this is the sort of thing you might ask your mentor, right? Like, how do I make my players say ouch when they touch that? And then your mentor can help you with that. But if you're just on your own Googling, then you want to go for a general concept. So maybe collision, sound, like graphics, right? Animations. Um, yeah, so in this example, like the ideal search term is like maybe one, it's Pygame collisions between sprites, and then two, like adding audio to Pygame. Like that's probably what I would just search. Uh, there's like I actually don't think this tip here is like up to date. Like apparently there are ways you can like customize your Google search, but I kind of tried it. I think you can look it up on your own. It's like Google advanced search or search keywords or something. I don't think it works completely because I just tried it like earlier in the day. The other thing is you probably come across this pretty often. There's no like official Pygame documentation, so it's like this is very specific. But over here, it's I think the website design is kind of bad, but it's pretty. It basically has everything you need, and like pretty much a list of all methods. So it's really good for Pygame. Uh, I would say it's actually I don't know what they mean by not beginner friendly. Yeah, in terms of like connecting things together, you kind of have to figure that out yourself. But I would say like if I went into, pygame.events, I don't really need to go in, but well, yes, the specifics are maybe not so beginner friendly because you can see there's a lot, but you just go to the top, generally speaking. Um, even like the description underneath that kind of tells you what it does. So you might be like wondering, oh, what does Q mean? So maybe you have to look into that. But for me, it's like if I had to guess what it means, it's like okay, there's a bunch of things called like maybe events are like well, I already know this, but like keyboard, you can probably scroll down, right? It gives you examples. So I'm not going to go through this in session, but it will give you examples if you want to read through the lengthy description. And then you can get a rough idea. Generally, you're not going to know exactly what it does, like all of the case is, but I would say Python documentation is really good. So Yeah, so our second quick question. Actually, no. One more thing I kind of want to mention before we go into the quick question is like, um, this, I feel like these slides, that we could add a new part, and I would say like using AI chatbots. So I honestly haven't used these tools too much, but I think they have like a lot of promise. Like I was just kind of testing out Finn like earlier today, just like putting in some code and asking it to explain, and it actually does like a pretty good job. So in terms of ranking, and obviously don't take this as a definitive answer because I haven't actually used them that much, but I know like GitHub Copilot has like very good reputation. I think it just helps you with like code and all in terms of explaining like suggestions or if you ask it to craft something for you, but it is not free. Another one is Fins. Most of you probably haven't heard of it, but you can look at the speaker notes in the session slide, and then obviously there's ChatGPT 3.5 and Bing AI. I think ChatGPT 4 is better, but once again, that's also paid. So when you're using AI chatbots, like you can always like kind of Google the same. You can kind of use them like you would Google. So you would say like maybe how do I do Pygame collision between sprites, and like the AI chatbot, maybe slight difference is well, they don't actually recommend you resources, but as long as it's not something too complex, they might just tell you like, how do you do this, right? Instead of like you having to look through the Stack Overflow and see like people and try to decode it. And then just like a few tips for using AI chatbots in general, it's like specificity, these other three, which you can look at if you're interested in just like maybe you want like chemistry help or something. You use these other ones, but for coding, it's you want to find the right balance, and you also want to like follow up on answers that the chatbot gives you. Especially like if you're not completely satisfied, you should kind of tell it like what more do you want. It's like, oh, maybe you ask it like, how can I make my code more efficient? And then it gives you like some answer, and you're like, okay, but how do I implement that, right? Yeah, so back to the quick question. I think Google is going to be the fastest way in this case. Like chatbot, you probably have to pull it up, but you can always use Bing AI if you really want to try. Um, yeah. Let's go. Okay, yeah, looks like everyone got that. Pretty simple question, let's say. Okay. Mm, yeah, okay. So next, I kind of skipped through this, but a few things you can do in terms of Googling and maybe even using AI chatbots. It's like you can try like searching for something different. Actually, no. I think what this try new search in this case is kind of like if there's like stuff that you don't understand, just look at it, right? Because they're usually often an explanation, especially if you're just going like traditional Google or even like AI chatbots. They'll mention things that don't make sense, and I would just say like you follow your curiosity and you keep on going. Like obviously if you have access to your mentors, then you should probably just ask them. Okay, and last thing is like, if nothing works, just take a break and then you can come back later. So, uh, we're gonna start creating the enemies, and I actually don't have the files, so I guess while I'm doing this, everyone can download these files from the beginning, right? And so that way you're just prepared. Um, okay, how do I pop this up? Yeah. Yeah, I'm just gonna quickly get the files here. Also if everyone's like, whenever everyone's done, just like put like a thumbs up in the chat. So I have, oh, um, okay, there you go. You have to rename the platform file so that it doesn't like have a namespace conflict. Okay, yeah, I think we're good. There you go, player.py. I just use like Control A to highlight everything. I feel like most of you should know that already. Um, and if you're already finished, basically you can go into the enemy slide and you can kind of just like copy and paste the code. I guess we can go through it later, but it's kind of similar to what we've already done. So like you get the image, right? And then you get the rectangle, kind of just create that. Here, I'll upload the images later. So basically what we want to do in kind of to also keep these organized, I believe we just make like another, yeah, I think we create another file, just call it like enemy.py. And in that we put the enemy class. In this case, we just have the image location. We also pull from like the pygame dot. We tell Pygame that we want it to be like a sprite, right? So inherit from that parent class. Get image rectangle, set the starting position. Um, yeah, and the other thing that you want to do is like you want to have the sprite group to keep track of everyone. And like, yeah, we're gonna assume that we have like access to the previous code, right? So you just pop this in, like kind of wherever it's convenient. Yeah, I don't have the players, but I'll probably just create a new file, enemy.py. Right, go over to, yes, okay, let's go here, pop that in. Okay, apparently my indentation is bad. So that I just like highlight and click tab. That's like a shortcut to fix indentation. Pretty sure my indentation's still bad, which is no good. Oh no. Okay, there you go. And then you want to import enemy. Anyways, so okay, I'm actually not gonna spend time coding this because I feel like you all probably get it from the previous examples. So basically, what we do to make the enemy move is we just like have in the update section of the enemy. So over here, oh, there's no update. Okay, we want to make it so make sure you include the self keyword so it can interact with itself. You want to make its rectangle move like, by its speed. At the moment, if you just do this, obviously the enemy's just gonna float across the screen and disappear, so that's not very useful. I guess here is like kind of an opportunity if anyone wants to try and like answer it, like, How would you make the enemy move back to the left? You don't have to type the exact code. Just like when I say pseudocode, it's kind of like describe what you would do. Uh, you can just unmute. Like if anyone is comfortable unmuting, that's probably better than typing in the chat. Okay, I'm gonna give like one more minute, and then if nobody answers, then. But yeah, how do we make the enemy walk back to the left? Um, sure, right? Okay. I would say close, but since you actually want to check like if it hits the right side, then you want it to turn right. But yeah, if it hits like an obstacle or something, or it goes past, I guess, a certain boundary, you have it turn back. Um, so next we have a few like useful things that you can do is there's like a built-in function called like pygame.transform, which basically, oh gosh, it helps you like transform images. And kind of what you can do is, I think, you're right. Let me try to give an example. Usually sometimes you might have image, you pass the image as like a parameter, and then instead of setting that directly as an image, you can apply like transformations first. You can set like, okay, have the actual image be like a transformation of, well, I guess you you keep on using self.image, it's redundant, but have the actual image be a transformation of this original image, right? So in this case, they're saying like make it, I believe, yeah, just make it like 75 pixels and 100. You can find the details in the documentation. Um, and then there's another one that you can do is pygame.transform.flip, which basically it reverses, it flips the character. It's good for like if you want it to animate things like moving left and right, that we don't have to have like the full set of images. And yeah, I think I already mentioned that. Oh yeah, so I guess like what an example of this is just you can have it like flip the image whenever you click the mouse button, and since um so like you're actually applying the transfer like self.image is kind of like a property of the object, right? So every time you apply this transformation, it like since the edits the property of the object itself, it actually works. Whereas if you're trying to like update like an original image, then it would not work, right? Because the image would be fixed. But since this, self.image is something you can change in the game, then it works. Yeah, so the first exercise is we want you to make the enemy walk left and right every two, and you probably don't have like I don't know if this code here that we imported has gravity, but the enemies won't be affected by it anyway. So you just want your enemies to turn around every 2 seconds. And like as a bonus, like make it change look in the other direction when it turns. So yeah, let's see. Uh yeah, I'm just thinking how long we need. Let's do like because I think the next part is starting our own game, right? Yeah, okay. Let's just do 15 minutes and then try to get as much done as you can, I think. Yeah, 15 minutes should be good enough. And yeah, you can make sure you use the enemy code that we got in these previous slides because it will just make your life easier. Oh shoot. I don't think my mic's was I even talking? I'm just gonna assume that I was talking, but yeah, so enemy collisions, right? What determine direction? Um oh, okay. Well, yeah, so basically we wanted to determine like if the enemy jumps hits a player from the side, then we delete the player. Otherwise, if the player jumps on top of enemy, we delete enemy. Okay. Um so like I said, I was actually having some issues with my code. I think it's like a file name issue, so I'm gonna have to figure that out later, so I can't demonstrate. But basically inside the update section, what you want to do is so the enemy update section, I believe. Actually, no. Um, oh, this would actually be inside the Pygame update section. So you go down to like oof here, right? And you probably add like a line of code. You can just copy and paste this. If the player collides with the enemy, well, this is like the simple version, like just kill the player, right? Um, now we're in terms of like implementing the code for determining which direction, like if you want to like get like very foolproof, then you might have to go like more in depth in what we're gonna cover here. But basically, it's like okay, first of all, like okay, is the player contacting the enemy, right? And then if you want to check whether the player's on top of the enemy, like a pretty simple way is just like if the player is x coordinates. Or I suppose you could say if the bottom of the player's x coordinates are above the like if the bottom of the player is above the top of the enemy and they are not quite above. So what you would need is you would need like a buffer. So like some sort of like tolerance zone that's like as long as the player's, within this, I guess in this case, this green zone, then even if okay, yeah, let me think. Actually, how would the logic for this work? Um, interesting. Hmm. So I guess I'm not sure how they did it, but let's see. So if the player's Y value, so the top left of the player is plus the player's height. So this is actually checking for the bottom of the player. You could just do like player dot rect dot bottom. Like it's a faster way. Because you know how like the higher up you are, the smaller the Y value, right? So this is checking for the player's bottom. The bottom of the player is so smaller. So if it's above the top, if it's above the enemy, the top of an enemy, because enemy dot rect dot Y starts from the top left, plus 10. So um, let's see. Basically, if the player is like okay, I believe this buffer zone. Oh yeah, so if it's as long as it's within like 10 at the bottom of the player is like within 10 pixels of the top of an enemy, then it counts as like hitting from above. If it's like more than 10 pixels, if it's like all the way down here, maybe like 20, 30 pixels, then it doesn't count as hitting from above. It's like a pretty simple way to do it. What did I do? Okay. And then like I said, it's probably not foolproof if you hard code something like this. But it's like the simple way, enemy dot kill. Otherwise, like the player dies. So like any other, yeah. Um, let's see. Yeah, well, this is not actually an exercise. It's kind of just like food for thought. Like what's a way that you might implement this? And like unless you are actually planning to build a Mario-based game, like you don't really need to worry about this. Just like have a rough idea how you might implement something, right? And oh yes, I did promise I will send the yeah, I keep on forgetting. I'll send the collision links for anyone. And yeah, so now the next two sessions are just gonna be time to like build a game. And I think my number one piece of advice is like um I guess for me I would say like dream big, but aim for something like smaller because like it's nice to imagine like all the features that your game's gonna have, but make sure like when you actually start coding, try to focus on the most basic version of your game that you can create first. And then once you get that, then you can start implementing more features. So yeah, so like in this slide it kind of says like think about approximately how much you can get done before the gala and then like cut that in half because you probably have to do a lot of debugging. And you don't have to use the pre-built classes at all. And in fact, I almost recommend you like okay, you can use them. You can use them, but if it was me, since like if you're feeling pretty confident in your abilities, I would actually recommend like starting almost from scratch. Because then, hey, first of all, you're actually gonna like understand it better if you like go through it again, and you also have like a bit more. I'm gonna be honest. Like I think some of the code in the examples is it's not necessarily buggy, but it's kind of hard coded and doesn't allow for that much flexibility. Okay, the collision is definitely buggy. Like you don't want the player to only be able to sense the top of the platform and teleport to it. So you'll have to fix that in like any game. Um, yeah, so if you're going for a platformer, definitely you can use the code here, but like fix the collision, and then I would say that's the biggest thing. And if you're stuck, you can aka research some games to inspire you. Like definitely don't spend too much time. I would say like some big themes you can do are like well, okay, these are not actually not themes. They're just more like game mechanics. You can do the bird's eye view. So like one of the things I want to do is like a dungeon crawler. Um, the map generation is like a bit tricky, so you might want to go like for a simpler type of map with like fixed obstacles instead of scrolling backgrounds. Then there's also I would say a lot of games like they're nice when you have scrolling backgrounds. So if you have the time, you can definitely like once again like we learned like Googling best places actually tutorials on YouTube. And and yeah, so like there I think there's a pretty big amount of ignite points for first place. I think it's like if you do well, I think you can have like is it like 200 or 100 ignite points? It's quite a bit. So, um, but I feel like above all, just like have fun. Mm. Okay. The guidelines. So unfortunately, you're not allowed to use like code in the past. Like maybe some of you have probably like coded games before. So, um, I'm gonna say like if you have like collision or something, like you can use that because I think it's kind of tedious to just like completely type it back up. But if it's like pretty obvious that you're like copying and pasting a bunch of stuff, then like yeah, I mean it's really like an integrity thing. It's not like we can actually enforce this, but try to. It wouldn't make much sense to just like this is not for like pre-built games. This is like code from the beginning, right? Um, December 8th. So. Yeah, I'm not sure if the gala is still going to be December 8th. Hopefully we can get that confirmed then like yeah. Okay, I can make an announcement to the Discord channel, but in the meantime you can assume that we're gonna like be presenting on I guess Friday. Um yeah, actually hang on. Sorry, this is not the gala. This is the due date. So yeah, we're just gonna say like assume December 8th is like the final day. If you submit after that, yeah, we might still look at it, but it's just not gonna be like featured or I don't know, at least it won't count for Ignite points, so yeah. Yeah, so there's the link here. I think it's just a regular submission form and oh, is it? Oh, sorry, this might be outdated. Winter 2022. Yeah, I don't know if this is okay, you know what? Just submit your final project through the regular like submission form that you usually submit. And just specify that's your final project. And yeah. So, last thing, I'm probably like talking a bit long, but definitely recommend like sharing your plan with your mentor because they can definitely give you some good pointers on like where to start. Um, and maybe like some things you may not have considered, right? So yeah, we can get rest of session for this. Okay. Um, for anyone who doesn't have access to the Discord, I'm gonna send those two links for the collisions that I mentioned in chat. So here. The first one is the one where I talk about where you like project where the player is going to be, and then you kind of calculate collisions based on that, and then you set the player's position. Whereas the second one's like after you've collided, how you like move the player back where it's supposed to be. Um, Personally, I think I prefer the method in the first one where you like predict, but it's not actually that much more complicated. What else? Yeah, I think, oh yeah, the last thing is like, I'm guessing you guys probably all started already, but the one caveat to like starting from scratch, you probably still want to just copy and paste all of the session one. So maybe you go back to like session, I think 1 or 2 slides, just like get the starter template so that way you don't have to like type in pygame.init, blah, 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 create the screen and stuff. Because sure, it's kind of good practice, but you might run into unnecessary bugs while you're doing that. So it's just kind of tedious. So. I guess with that, we can do our end of session survey and we'll be done.